Hey guys, welcome back. I know I've been somewhat absent lately, and I've kind of taken a short hiatus here for the past few months or so. I did move into a new apartment. That was kind of a big change. There's been a lot going on at work. You know, things are busy, and I just needed a little bit of time for life. So that's how that works out sometimes. But I do want to spend more time working on my YouTube channel, because I enjoy it and I really do miss it, and I wish I had more time and energy for it. But sometimes other things in life unfortunately take priority. But I'm going to try and kind of wheel my way back into the YouTube feel of things here. I'd love to have new guns and lots of parts and stuff to review on my YouTube channel as often as possible. So if any companies are watching, I'm always happy to check out your stuff and talk about it on my channel here. But unfortunately, I haven't had a whole lot of that lately, which, you know, that's life. That happens sometimes, and I've had lulls and, you know, what I have to review and things like that. So in times like that, I would just want to sit and talk about, you know, how Airsoft has changed and my experience in it. What I want to talk about today is how Airsoft was when I started and how I see it today, and kind of my experience starting out and what I'm seeing in newer players starting out today. So I started somewhere around like 15 years ago. Honestly, I can't even remember the year I started, but it was right around there. It was like half my life ago or so. Anyway, I got a couple of spring pistols for Christmas one year. Some really, really cheap, like Walther PPKs that were not 1:1 scale and shot maybe like 200 feet per second. They were, you know, cheap, but they were something fun my folks thought I would enjoy, and they had no idea what they were getting me into there. Airsoft. After maybe a month of regular usage or so, those stopped working. They broke. The little piston sears on them just snapped off. Nothing new. Anyway, from there, I thought, oh, Big 5, they've got some cool airsoft guns. I went there, I bought those. Of course, you know, they're Springers too. They broke just as quickly, just as easily. I just paid a bunch more money for them, unfortunately, because Big 5 is overly expensive for what they sell in the airsoft department. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna go get an electric gun. I spent 40 bucks on a low-powered electric gun. It was a little like, it was the M83 from Double Eagle. If you guys have ever seen that, it's like the suppressed M4 with a rail system. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And then it shot like 20 feet. I'm like, oh, this is not that great. And this is way back in the day when there wasn't a lot of information online. Actually, there's close to no information online. This is back when YouTube was really starting out. And there weren't a lot of websites even for, you know, good information on airsoft, teching, or anything like that. So this is a really kind of scarce period in airsoft, I feel like, a while back when I was getting into it. At this point, I'm like 16 or so, and I'm like, okay, I need to get something that's going to last, that shoots the way I want it to. And I had no idea what an AEG was at the time or anything along those lines. I really didn't know anything. I'm like, okay, I did some looking on the internet, just Google search back then. Airsplat came up. They've got tons of airsoft guns. They're saying, hey, this shoots 360 feet per second. It has a range of 120 feet. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. I've been shooting these blasted spring guns for years, and they shoot 50 feet. Cool, 120 feet, I'll take it. So I saved my pennies for a little bit, and the first gun I ever bought was an ICS MP5 with a folding stock. I got that thing in the mail like a week later, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world, and really it was. This is the nicest airsoft gun I'd owned at the time, and it shot great. It was really, really nice, but the problems, you know, back then nothing came with a battery at all. So I had to figure out, okay, what does this thing need? I didn't even know what connector it is, yada yada. There just wasn't information out there like that hardly at the time. And I'm like, okay, what charger do I need on top of that? What do I need to charge this battery? And do I need more than one battery? And what are the logistics of everything else I need? So I believe like the Airsplat on their website at the time said, okay, it takes like a 600 milliamp hour Sanyo mini type 8.4 volt battery or something along those lines, which nowadays no one would ever dream of using. It's old technology. But I'm like, okay, I'm gonna find this exact battery. I went on eBay and picked one up for like 15 bucks or something. I'm pretty sure I got it used because I charged it with, I want to say it was like an old standard wall charger that wasn't a smart charger. It was just a trickle charger that took like 5-6 hours to charge. And pretty consistently, you know, the gun came with a 200 round high cap magazine, and I just had the one at the time. I didn't know any better to buy a bunch of magazines, which I probably should have. But I'd get about maybe 30 or 40 BBs out, 30 full cycles, and it would just die. And I'm like, well, shoot, this is not fun. You know, if I can't get more than 50 BBs out of a charge, then what's the point? So I bought another battery. It lasted maybe 100 BBs or so, 100 shots. And I don't know, I was having the weirdest luck with batteries at the time. I'd buy a battery and I'd let it charge for 4 to 6 hours or something, which should be enough to give it like at least a half a charge or 75%, whatever. And they would just die. I don't know. To this day, I'm pretty sure I just got used or old batteries that were just sitting on a shelf, or I'm not even sure what the deal was. But I got to the point where I'm like, I would even go out to airsoft fields. And the one field I had at the time to play at was Airsoft Northwest in Sultan, Washington, which was a great field. I really miss it. There were some good guys out there. Had some weird experiences out there, but it's such a cool field. We had like 150 people out there at times. It was a good crowd, especially back then. So I recall there was this kind of a turning point for me. One day I was playing and it was like the first game. It was like 9-10 o'clock in the morning. Great 60-degree day, perfect weather, beautiful, sunny. And I get out there and I have this guy dead to rights, about to shoot him. My airsoft gun just doesn't work at all. The battery's dead before I can even get a single BB out. I'm just like, I'm done. I've got to find something else here to make this gun shoot besides these crappy batteries that I keep buying. So I thought, okay, what's a good way to put a bigger battery in this gun that's going to last a long time? So I did some looking. I'm like, okay, I can get a full stock that's going to fit a large type battery. Cool. So I did that, spent the 40 or 50 bucks on an ICS full stock for my MP5. And I'm like, okay, this is great. I put a big old 3000 milliamp hour, 8.4 volt, like RC car battery in it. And I'm like, okay, this is great. I plugged it in and it shot so well. It was like twice the rate of fire. So the stupid little 600 milliamp hour 8.4s were like maybe 8 or 10 rounds a second. They're like They're so blasted slow. And this 8.4 volt large, 3000 milliamp hour, I don't even know what the discharge rate was on it, probably like 25 C at least. This thing was probably getting me at least 14 to 16 BBs a second. It was just, it was like, oh, for my first airsoft gun, it was a game changer. It made everything like new again. It was amazing. I realized really quickly that I was running out of BBs in my 200 round high cap magazine, like stupid fast, because now my gun actually shot the way it was supposed to. So I went to what was it, Monroe, Washington? I think there was a little shop there for a little while, like a couple of years, and they closed at some point, unfortunately, because they were tiny. They barely had anything. They had like Classic Army and ICS, and that was about it. And I remember buying a dot sight, which was like a really cheapo $25 NC Star one. You can still get them nowadays, I think. And I bought a second high cap mag, and that was like, okay, I've spent my money. That was like 60 bucks for me at the time. It was a lot of money when you're high school, you know? So I got the dot sight. I got a second high cap mag. I think I got a mag clamp at the time too. And I thought, oh, this is the coolest thing. I can carry 2 mags at a time. So I got to the point where, you know, I could actually have fun in airsoft and get some hits and stuff like that. And there's some buddies on Whidbey Island I go airsoft with occasionally, and they had, one of the guys had an ICS M4. It was the old gray body ones, the LE collapsible stock on it. And I actually recently got one not too long ago. I did a video on. But this thing was like, you know, it outshot my MP5 like a stupid amount. Like he'd put a 120 spring in it, so it shot somewhere around like that 400 FPS mark. And he just ran a 12 volt battery in this thing. And I kid you not, this thing just 25, 30 BBs a second. It was a laser beam. We'd take it out at night. It just looked like a white stream coming out of this thing. And he'd sit there and literally dump 450 round high cap after high cap out of this thing. And it's chugged, stock, untuned, on a 12 volt Sanyo NiCad battery that, I kid you not, this guy religiously, every time he charged it, discharge and charge, because NiCad, that's what you got to do. You got to discharge it and recharge it. And gosh, those were interesting times in airsoft. I'm taking that experience back then, this is, 14, 15 years ago, and realizing that, oh my gosh, things have changed so much. And I do want to talk about that and kind of express to new players and old players alike that, the game has changed completely. I can go to any airsoft website and they've got so much information about what you need, what they have, and just all the options. You can literally buy a starter kit from like say Fox Airsoft or any other major airsoft website, and they will have face protection, lower face mask, goggles that are actually decent. They'll have a gun, they'll have a battery and a good charger with it, and usually like a spare magazine or something along those lines, and a bottle of BBs. It's literally everything you need to get started. And gosh, I wish I had that so bad like 15 years ago. The other side of that coin, I had this long, like probably a year-long ordeal really of getting this airsoft gun to work, because it broke twice. I took it to that shop once in Monroe, and this is like right after I put that nice 8.4 volt large battery through it. I took it to that shop, and it just the symptom was it stopped feeding. And nowadays, I'd take it apart in 20 minutes and get it fixed. But back then I'm like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I've never even taken the lower off the upper receiver. Like, I'm just going to take it to a shop and have them fix it. They put a new tappet plate in there. That was the fix. It cost like $40 from the fix or something. Wasn't bad. But maybe like a month or two later, it was like really, really quickly later. I think that shop had like closed, so they weren't an option anymore. And the gun was broken, and I'm like, you know what? This is at this point a pretty significant investment for me, especially back then. I need to get this thing fixed. So I took it to Surplus in Woodinville, which interesting store. I worked there for a few months, and yeah, it was cool at the time. It was like the airsoft place to go to, especially in like Western Washington for a long, long time. They had everything you could possibly need. They had a pretty good tech service, so I took it there, and it ended up sitting in their little back shop there for 3 months waiting for parts. And I'm just like, well, I didn't get the airsoft at all that summer. It turns out they replaced I think it was like $100 in parts. They replaced the gearbox shell because the little post behind the trigger shuttle had broken off. They replaced the motor because apparently the T2000 that was in there had burnt out. They put a Turbo 3000 motor in there, but they were waiting for months for that to come in. So lo and behold, I didn't get the gun back for a while. And I want to say it was like the piston and one other thing had failed. And it was like, it's a number of things. It's like, oh my gosh, like how did this precipitate out of nowhere? It was really strange. That's another part of this whole adventure too, is keeping the gun working, because back then I didn't know how to tech things, and very quickly after that I started opening up my gun, got another gun, opened that up and started learning. And I found, like, I think it was mechbox.com back then was the only place online I could find that would show you pictures or videos of how to open up your airsoft gun. And I think they just had videos like Tokyo Marui back then, because like there weren't a lot of brand options. You didn't have a lot of there weren't a lot of resources back then, especially for like different brands and different options of guns. It was very, very limited at the time. Now, during this whole thing, I needed to find good eye protection, because if you don't have good eye pro, you're kind of out of luck. You need good eye pro. And the problem I was having was fogging, and how much money do I spend on this, and how much can I afford? So, I mean, you usually get the cheapo, like $2 plastic glasses from Lowe's. I tried those for a while, but you go out to the major fields, they want ICO protection, which is a great thing. And back then, I felt like it was kind of a tough thing to get that didn't fog up, unless you just bought a paintball mask, and still those often fogged up. It was huge, huge pain. So I found like these wood shipping glasses online, like goggles, and they had some really fine mesh, and they worked fine, but until I got those, they weren't the greatest. I think I threw those out a while ago. I'd just get like, the different goggles from like Lowe's or Home Depot for like $3, and those still would fog up, and there's just nothing I could do. It's like, okay, I got 20 minutes of play before this fogs up, make it count. It wasn't that fun. So I finally got those, and those worked well enough. And gosh, there's just so many different goggles I went through. It's like, I probably had about 5 or 10 different things I tried. Those worked for a while, and I finally got some just good old mesh goggles that worked, and I've used those to this day, and they've been worth every penny. So whatever you guys may think of those have worked for me, and thank God I found those, because it saved me so much time and money, and just, yeah, it was great. But again, nowadays, you can literally hit up an airsoft website, go watch 50 zillion YouTube videos. I've got a handful of rather old beginner videos now. Maybe I should redo those at some point. But the point is, the game has changed. You can get into airsoft in like 20 minutes online with like no help from anyone else, because all the information's there. You can just go buy a decent starter kit for $200 to $250 that's got everything you need, that works well out of the box, instead of having to figure out over the long period of time that I did how to do what you need to do to actually play airsoft effectively and comfortably and without any strange and annoying hassles. So bottom line is, Airsoft's great nowadays. Things are so easy. There's so many people out there willing to help you. There's a plethora of information online that's just, you will never find the end of it. And there are so many options for airsoft gun nowadays. You have dozens and dozens of airsoft brands to pick a pretty solid gun from. Back when I started, it was like ICS, Tokyo Marui, and Classic Army were kind of your go-tos. If you wanted to upgrade it, get a Classic Army. If you wanted a good gun out of the box, you bought an ICS. And if you wanted just the classic, I guess, you bought a Tokyo Marui because they worked well. But they did cost more money to upgrade because they were more basic guns with their nylon bushings. They only shot 280 FPS or so, give or take. And so, you know, I didn't know any of this going in. It took me years to figure all that out later. If you're wanting to get into airsoft now, it's a great time because it is so easy and so much more affordable nowadays than it ever was in the past. Thanks for watching, guys. I know this has been kind of a long-winded rant on airsoft and my history in it, and I feel like I've been through quite a bit in airsoft, and I'm always just wanting to share it if I can and share my experiences and hope you guys can benefit from them. So hopefully I'm looking forward to reviewing some stuff in the near future, airsoft wise. I'm trying to put a little more effort into the channel here because I've been gone for a little bit, but you know, just the world's in kind of a, well, crazy place right now, to say the least. And I know with all the supply lines, getting some airsoft guns in right now is a little tough, a little expensive sometimes. So, you know, keep an eye out. Things will come in and I'll get to review some airsoft guns here soon enough. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.